Alright, I have exactly so much to do, so little time. But let's continue our rally excursion. Should just play 2.0, but we're having fun with this, so I can't. I also had to, now that I had the wheel stuff set up, I had to fight another game to get it set up. Get a NASCAR Heat, because I couldn't get NASCAR Racing 2003 working. Oh yeah, we were using SimHub for this, weren't we? Sure, I'll start up SimHub. Sure. I'm not opening the window anymore. So I went to go get a package off the porch. I touched the handle and about burned myself. Like just straight up, just like, wow. That was something. Wait, this records data? Recent sessions. How does it know this? Export. Are you kidding me? Export to Excel. The heck? If only it said what track it was. Figured I'd let Aquas know we're doing a little dirt. I'm just curious. Dirt 1 for stream. Alright. Alright. Is it visible? This is gone. It's certainly there. Is it currently not? Okay, it's a browser window, so what's... Oh, does it have a new... Does it have a new address? It's called Dirt1 Test. What is Dirt1 Tests thing? It's the same thing. Is it just not loaded into the game yet? Let's start a thing. We are in Greece. Do I have a Greece? Doesn't look like it. Give me this grease. Is there grease in here? Alright. Alright. Yeah, I don't want to hold the handbrake quite yet, guys. Stop. I don't see it showing up, which is sort of dumb.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Right 3 continues.
No, it actually is going to show all 4 sections, all 8 sections.
Right 6 through dip 80.
Now it's a real rally.
60. Left 3 half long 60.
So this is the 3rd difficulty on Dirt 1. We're gonna see how badly this goes. You gotta remember that anything that's not the floor is lava. It's out here to kill us.
Immediate turn square right, don't cut. 60. Right 5 half long into left 6 half long.
Aquas played some Dirt Rally yesterday. Thought that was pretty cool.
Don't cut 80.
They're getting pretty good.
6 through dip crest.
Oh. I do like the breakables in this game. Also, when they randomly put, like, just randomly you get, what do you call it? They'll just place in the middle of the road like a big rock that actually, like, hurts. I'm like, you guys are a little bit, it's a little bit crazy, man. If the telemetry's not showing, we'll get it up there and in another go here. Wow, there's so much I'm fighting on this car right now.
Left 5 long over crest. Right 6. Left 6. Continues over jump. Caution left 6. Jump. Keep mid. Left 6.
Alright, this dude that made this setup wants rear drive, and I'm like, I need not rear drive.
Left 2 opens long. And left 6. And right 6. Into left 6. Into caution right 5 tight, don't cut past junction. Into square left. Into turn right 3. Into
Oh,
left
wrong
2
way.
tight.
Went the wrong way. Sorry, just get off the rocks. Go on.
Into left 6. Into right 3 half long through dip.
You know, for all the times that I've done these stages,
Left 3 long.
I think they're all separate. But some of the ones that are 8 pieces make me feel like they're just shorter versions of the one, longer versions of the ones that have 8 or 4. I don't think that's true though, because there's like a lot of distinct things in the other one. Like I can actually look at all the stages top down. Might be like in this too, but like I don't remember there being, besides like the reverse and like, you know, the hill climb instead of the not hill climb. I don't think any of the tracks are reused. Like there isn't a 4 kilometer version and an 8 kilometer version of the same track. Oh, it's the part where we can go off the cliff. Okay, thank you. Please forward, please. Thank you. So we got some setup issues to address here. I decided to just go into it because I figure we don't have a lot of time, and I'd like to at least get one rally in. I think it's 8 stages, so. Oh boy! Oh, thanks, Tree helping us out. We hired a new crew member, so hopefully damage is a little bit less of a thing now. Don't know what to do here. Wow, we're getting schooled by Thomas Mueller, whoever the other guy is. But yeah, I was actually surprised. NASCAR Heat 4 is actually not like the worst sim ever, because I couldn't get Sim Racing 2003 working.
Caution right 5, 60 down. Right 5, don't cut. Into caution left 4, half long. Into turn left 3 long. Into right 5, don't cut, 60. Right 6, long over crest. Left 6, 60. Left 6, 60. Right 6, 60. Left 6, crest. Right 3, long down. Into caution left 5, don't cut.
Well, we didn't really gain time. We didn't really lose time on that one.
60 over crest. Left 4 continues for 90.
Caught a little bit of that. Oh boy, barrel roll. Let's go.
And caution right 6.
It's pretty clean.
Immediate hairpin left.
So gears way too long. At least for me, they're way too long. I mean, I just got some basically setups off of what do you call it, off of Steam, because for whatever reason 2 has no support for that, but 1 does. So I'm like, hey, let's check it out. And they've been okay. I really wouldn't say they're great though. But a lot of people in the comments are like, hey, you made me shave off 5 seconds. I'm like, well, it can't be that bad. This one's okay. In this version, this car is, well, I'm using setups, and I also know how the car works now. So the amount of beast that this car has, so I actually gained time in that section. Probably helps that I'm just going to redo the turn because I'm a moron. Alright. So, but you almost got a NASCAR stream.
Small press, left 6 long press.
The only thing that they really needed to do with Heat 4, and it's probably because it's a console game, but it really can't be that hard. See, you really, I like to run long distance racing, and that doesn't exactly bode well with, like, your actual time and medical issues. So, like, I would highly appreciate games. Oh, here. I would highly appreciate games that give you like GTR2 is amazing, and so is R Factor, because I can just save where I'm at and pick it up next time. Like, I don't have to, and you can't tell me that NASCAR Heat couldn't have done that. Maybe 5 did. I only have 4. But like, that's the one thing that NASCAR's Racing 2003 doesn't have, is I want to run a 400 lap race in it. Problem, that's a one sitting thing, and I don't think you can even, maybe you can pause the sim, but I don't think you can, you know, it's not exactly, yeah, so I'm very tempted to get GTR2 back installed. I'm really wanting to get back into it, my little bit of free time. Yeah, game, I know I slammed you into neutral. Get out of here. Oh boy. That was the best, worst. Damn. Well, that was terrible. That was going so well. Now we get a 735 when it should have been way less. So, 2 of these people are going to destroy us. It was actually a good time too, up until the end of that. We would have been second, or third. We would have been third without the mess. What was I gonna check in? Oh, I was gonna see if this sucker showed up. It did not show up. Is there a way to force it to, like, refresh? Interesting. Can't you, like, always refresh? Thank you. Now I know. Oh, oh, no.
3, 2, 1, go. Caution left 4 long, keep mid.
Oh, no, dude.
Keep right of the crest. Into left.
Well, hopefully we can get through this stage. Oh,
Caution
oh,
left rear.
oh, oh, oh.
5, 4.
We got to get to the service station.
1, go.
That.
Left 4 long, keep mid. Into right 5
man.
half long, don't cut, keep right of the crest. Into left 4 long.
I'm not short shifting. Let's just go.
Caution, right 2 long, keep mid.
Oh, oh.
170.
Alright, I've had enough of that.
5, 4,
This setup sucks.
3, 2, 1, go.
So, first thing that's happening is I'm moving all the brake bias to the front. I don't quite understand, like, one way to make the car to get that swing on the corners that some people want, but this is stupid. That's not what this car needs to be doing. I disagree.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Caution left 4 long,
So,
mid, into right
the issue
5
here
half
is, so
long,
basically,
don't cut, keep right of the
I
crest.
have no
Into left
tools to
4 long,
regather the car because they decided to push
right
the,
2 long,
to
keep
be
mid.
real. I mean, even if I stomp on it, I can't straighten the car to get through straight on a corner like that. So, I disagree that this setup is good.
Caution, jump, right
It's
5 tight, don't cut.
it's
Left
about
6,
right,
into
but the
left
problem
5
is
long,
in order
80
to
over
fix problem 1, like, this is piss. In order to fix the first problem, we actually have to go in and fix.
4,
The diff has to be fixed because
1.
the brake bias is built stupidly.
Into right 5 half long, don't cut, keep right of the crest.
For like turns like that, it's great. For turns like this, it will never work unless we just completely stop all momentum, and there's kind of like pretty much a straight hole in there, and if we don't take it straight, the car is going to flare out and either touch the cliffside. Like here, we're going to touch the cliffside, and I just have to completely stop. I don't know. I'm also bad at this, but I know what I want, and it's not that. Like, it needs to...
mid.
the car needs to have more ability to correct on how bad of a track this is. And you need to be able to take things straight instead of sliding everywhere. Like you wanna slide job everywhere, I guess, but otherwise, I don't know. I'm doing mostly okay, not slide jobbing everywhere.
Into right 6.
I actually don't know what happens in this game if you run out of resets. You probably can't reset anymore. It's that, or you just lose all of your bonus credits. But I don't really need the bonus credits, so we're just going to use the resets whenever the game blips or stuff like that happens. But we lost 10 seconds in that first sector because the car is just terrible. Should have lost like 5 or less. But it does appear that that lead guy is going to start going off into the distance on us, and we're going to have to eventually try to get good at this version. 1, 2. Okay. See, like I really don't want to ever be braking there, but the car just got loose, and now I have to brake a lot in order to regather the car because all the brake bias is set to the rear.
And right 5, don't cut. Into left 5, half long. Into right 5, half long.
I'm not really sure what the strategy was. This guy doesn't. I don't know. Maybe this is how you can be fast in one, but I would generally be looking at like trying to make the brake bias in this car like 70%. That's always thinking of forwards. Like 70. This has basically got like 70% rear, and I want 70% front. Because then you get it. I mean, yeah, it's rear-wheel drive, but you still get bite with the car because of the brake force.
Right 2, half long. And right 6.
Okay, that was not a bad sector. Now we're gonna hit things. So, unfortunately, our repair dudes are gonna have to repair like the entire radiator, and hopefully we still have wheels left because I don't want to deal with punctures. Getting a puncture here is basically going to be like no bueno, game over.
Caution 100, keep left over crest, right 4 long, don't cut. Into caution, left 6 crest, jump maybe. Left 6, keep in. Right 6, left 6, and left 4 half long.
Gotta stay on the track, man.
Don't cut 100.
We just made sure to stay in there. I can't afford any more damage. I don't want to reset yet. That damage at the end of that last stage really changed the shape of what we're going to do here in this first rally.
Left 6 into caution, buff narrows. Left 6, right 6. Right 6 continues for 80, tightens 5, and continues.
Man, like that. Why is that touch lifting the car?
And right 6 into
I don't know about some of these touches, man. We lost 8 seconds in that sector.
And caution left 6 into right 1, continues for 100. 80. Right 4 narrows. Left 5 half long.
The preload's pretty good, and the exit. I just hope I don't have to completely change the diffs. That's my hope.
Right 6 long.
But stuff like that gets a little bit. That's a bit squirrely. And all I want is a good tap on the brake to just kind of bring it all back, without having to worry that I'm just going to scrub all of my speed, because when it's all in the rear, you kind of got to let everything catch up. I don't know. I don't like it. But we're gonna get some good rallying and some fun here. So I have stuff I have to finish today, and gotta be done by 8.
120 to finish.
See, I'd really like to have more. Okay, we can go straight here. Don't hit the sign. Whoa, jeez. Don't hit the sign. Ah! That wasn't the worst. Probably got third. Alright, I'll take third. Oh, goodness. Alright, we gotta fix the car, eh? Okay, our radiator's not as messed up as I thought it was, but let's just fix it all the way. Anything else I can do to get the wheels back up? We gotta not take a lot of damage on this one. Okay, so whatever we did with the brake bias, guys, what is happening? Give me a little bit more and give it to me in the front. Let's try that. Diff is extremely loose. I'm kind of here for it. I didn't realize it was that low. Let's try it. Let's bring final drive way down. This suspension. What do I think of this suspension right now? Let's do this. And if we still don't like it after this stage, after these two, the pair stages, we'll make the suspension a lot firmer. But I mean, I got through them, and I didn't really have a lot of wiggle. Because what that is, when it's really soft, I think that's where you can get a lot of the wiggle from. I don't know that for certain, because I really, if I knew how to fix the wiggle, I would fix it all the time.
Right 6 continues for 100. Keep left over crest. Right 6 don't cut. Into left 5 continues for 150.
Well, went way too hard there. I didn't realize that. I was looking at a different shadow, and I'm like, oh, I gotta turn like 3 left here, and that's not at all what was happening.
Right 5 continues for 130 over bumps. Caution left 6, half long.
It's actually a good comparison for. Wasn't Aquas at this yesterday? Maybe this is track and rat. Because we were talking about apexing.
Right 3, 60. Right 4, jump. Right 3, tight. Left 4 of jump, don't cut.
Oh boy! Well.
Into right 4,
Oh, dude. Oh, it blipped too. Cool. We might be able to just drive through this. Let's just keep going. I'm not a fan of that. It's not enough braking power. Let's scooch in so I have more braking. We didn't get a puncture, so if our time ends up being serviceable, I'll just roll with it.
60. Care left 6.
See here, I'm just gonna, yeah, I'm using the handbrake. I'm using everything to catch that up. If you really miss it, hitting all the brakes at once. See here, same deal. Let's try not to bin it. Missed everything. Now let's talk about hairpin apexings there again. Alright, so we didn't actually lose too much time besides the real screw up. So we kind of go wide here, get into this, and whip into the tree. Pretty close to just restarting the stage, but I got to keep in mind we have a lot of resets left. So.
Right around tree 60.
But what I'm not braking early enough, and I'm not getting what I want.
Caution left 6, half long over bump.
Probably this is probably where having that rear would actually help.
Into caution left 4 and down.
I wish I had an easier button to throw in the clutch. The clutch is pretty effective too. And it's a little bit better, I feel, than the flick. Well, it helps you get around better than the flick if the flick isn't enough. I don't know. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a recovery ride in here. Oh man. Really? Pretty close to just redoing the whole stage. We'll see. There's still like what, 5 stages left. We should just continue. Just accept our Loserville. But I have a feeling that second place is going to be like 10 seconds. I don't know. I got to think about what to do with those hairpins.
And left 6, 60, keep left over crest, 80 through dip. Keep right over crest, into left 5, don't cut, 80, right 6.
Oh boy, this is not Dirt 2. In Dirt 2, we actually can jump that gap. In Dirt 2, we can jump that gap.
Right 5 continues for 150 over jump. Left 5 continues for 100 over bump.
You know what this game needs? It needs a dirt fish. It needs a place for me to like take a setup and like run it on different surfaces at the same time.
To left 5, 60, keep right over crest.
Did not do well there.
Left 6, dip.
I don't know, the setup's got issues in those low speed corners, and I'm thinking I should not be thinking about it right now, but I'm thinking about what I can do to fix it
Left 6.
without messing up the. I mean, it does almost seem like I need to change the brake bias back,
Into right or long.
which is very sad. Maybe we just try the brake bias with. You know what probably would help, to be honest. So one thing that happens when you have a very soft suspension is that it also dampers, is that the car becomes unresponsive. So like it'll feel like things are sluggish coming back. So the more firm you make the suspension, the more snappy it is, the more it wants to react, right? So I don't know. I think I'm still going to stick with my original plan. I'm going to increase. I'm probably going to go like 7 clicks on everything on that suspension. Go to town. Because I just don't feel I have the responsiveness in the car. I don't want it to go nuts on me. But basically it loads. I'm trying to remember how it works. It's all about energy exchange, and like the springs is like the overall, like at all times, this is how much energy is happening. So the firmer the spring, the more resistance there is for the car to roll, I think. Which means that if you overload it, well then the spring hits all the various bump stops and things, and your car bottoms out. And that could be bad. But in this game, we really can't run on anything that is not the road. So it's like, road doesn't look too bad to me. Looks, I mean, to the eye, it looks flat. Even though it's probably not. But that's what the bump stops are for. So like, there's the regular suspension, which is for the slow dampers and the rebound dampers are for your normal operation of the car, and then you usually have a not third spring, but basically there's a spring and a bump stop, an additional spring, and those come into play basically when a large amount of force happens, aka you're hitting various bumps. So when you hit a really bad bump in the road, you want a little bit more suspension to help handle it. And that's what the fast dampers are for. Those help dissipate not random, but just like energy that you're not just going to get from regularly driving the car. It's from the road surface and hitting, like on a racing track, hitting curbs. In this, it's probably hitting all of the going off track and any of these sections that are super bumpy. Not so much jumps though. I'm always told you don't want to change your bump stops based on jumps. Jumps is a lot about approach and just the suspension itself just not being completely overwhelmed and all over the place. So we're going to attempt to make some changes here after this next stage, and we're just going to make the whole car just way firmer. Still fighting for that third. We lost a lot of time in the first stage. This game's gonna charge me a fortune for the car.
5,
Busted this car.
4, 3.
Radiator light's not back on yet though,
Go.
so
Right
that's
4
something.
long, to left 5, 60
So that means we can probably repair a lot of the car.
into right 3 long and left 2 half.
See, in this one I can't run that. I can't run into the tree. Tree bad.
Left 6,
That's a
80,
bad corner.
crest jump maybe. Left 6, 60. Right 2 continues for 100.
Let's see if we could do something better here.
60.
See, we found the apex, and we know we can accelerate out and not have to worry about hitting anything. Even though that was still pretty slow. Really, oh, yes. Well, alright, I can kind of work with this. I am going to work with this, because there's still 4 more stages. And I think with 5 rallies to go after this, that I can handle a 4th place finish if I'm racing for third. Third is advancement, so oh my god. This might be a redo at this point. This is pretty bad. Yeah, this is pretty bad. Just redo the stage. I wonder if you can reset after you run out of resets.
1, go. Right 4 half long.
Gotta be careful about false starts now too.
Into right 3 long. And
So
left
we're
2
gonna
half
probably
long,
just way
front
more
cut.
careful than we'd ever need to be.
Right 6 long 80.
What? There's no bite.
Left 6 80 over crest jump maybe.
Oh, you know what I need? I need to move the differential back. So one of the things that all-wheel drive cars have that's a little bit different than the rear-wheel drives, particularly in this category. Well, so we have a center torque bias, which so basically we can choose how much drive to give to each. Are you pissed? Come on! Oh God! Now we have to reset because the game decided there I'm not allowed to go back. Yes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Right 4 half long.
Now we can't crash at all.
60 crest. Into right 3 long. And left 2 half long, don't cut.
Unless unless it's just unlimited resets.
Left 6
That'd be.
80 over crest jump maybe.
We're not going to abuse that.
Left
Unless we
6
like
60.
make an unrecoverable
Right 2
car.
continues 100.
We probably should have just shaken this down.
60.
Yeah, I didn't really.
Left 4 long 100.
I didn't think this setup was going to be bad, but it's pretty not good.
Caution right 3 half long narrows. Into left
I would have been honestly better off whatever the heck the other gravel one is. Like this. So we have a very soft suspension, and all those little bumps there, it just doesn't even help. Oh man, it's Aquas. Speak of the devil. We got a bad setup. We're not doing. Don't watch. We're trying to get to the next rest stop to make some adjustments, and we didn't. Yeah, the little gauge. I mean, keep in mind the middle is the middle. Like I don't know how to fix it, and I just don't feel like spending 2 hours of not playing the game to fix it. I should just figure out where you got yours, because yours is really nice. It actually shows the shift points and everything too. Now that you probably can't hear them, but how you doing? I had like an hour before I have to go deal with dinner and things, family time, so figured we'd play a little bit. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely set it up if it's not cumbersome to do so. Because yours like looks. I just didn't want to run through all of the mods in race department, and then when you search Dirt Rally, everything now comes up Dirt Rally 2, of course. So. Hey, not a bad time.
And left 4 long, 80 through dip.
I even cleared out a Discord just for you. I saw Lucha was talking in there too. So. Usually my... I have no Discords, but I was like, well, I don't really play Civilization 6, so the community forums for... I hate this one spot. This spot is basically like the worst spot, because every time I do this... There's certain spots that are, I mean, it's the same map, it's just that the width of the road and some things were changed in the second game, I guess. But that particular spot, no matter what I do, I always end up in the ditch, and many times I end up four-wheeling it to basically chop the next corner. Which you can get away with a little bit more in Dirt 2. The damage is... I mean, if you can run hardcore damage, but the problem is that the AIs don't, and to some degree. Like, how do I say it? Like, if I'm racing in Masters, it's not going to work to run hardcore because you have to run all out, which damages everything on the car, which costs you credits, on top of the fact that you will damage the radiator and the engine enough to have to repair it every... Oh, that was just bad. That was... I'll just recover the vehicle. That was bad.
Keep mid over crest, 100. Caution narrows, left 6 over crest. Right 5 don't cut, 100. Caution narrows, right 6 long.
I was very afraid to touch anything that's the side of the road on this. So what we're going to do for the next two stages, we're going to basically make the dampers and the suspension very firm. And we're going to see if that helps us, because this is something else. Like, we have no everything is just way too sluggish. So we get to a hairpin, and I want it to kick, and the car just won't go. So we'll see what we can do about this. Hill climb. Okay. Don't cut. Get cut. How bad's our radiator? Okay, so we gotta fix the wheels. Gotta fix the engine, and I probably should fix some of the suspension, and then I'm out of time. So I do it this way. Jeez. So yeah, except you do that one time. All right, so we gotta fix something here. I don't want the rear too high. This is what I really want. I'm gonna trust him that these are better, but this is... Oh, not fast. So this game has it set up weird, these are all split, but basically you would never want... I hope they're the same. I wish it showed how many clicks. Second game doesn't have this problem. 1, 2, 3. It's 3 clicks back. I'm gonna go. Oh, so does the game? I just see what it did here. So is it only letting me change the one? I don't know. This is what we're gonna try. Then this is the other thing we're gonna change. So we're gonna move. Oh, hello, dude. That's a terrible idea. Well, no wonder I can't turn the car. Cool. Time to die. Like, why does the car not want to go anywhere? Oh yeah, watch us just go off into a ditch. But essentially this person's setup was trying to make this a front-wheel drive car, and that's the problem. Front-wheel drive car with a rear brake to spin it. Oh, now oh boy, now we have a beast. I'm gonna have to be careful. I don't. If you're not allowed to reset after 5, we already had some setup woes. But I'll tell you what, we get to a hairpin now, car's gonna go somewhere. It might not go where I want it to go, but it's gonna go somewhere. Oh, now I understand why you do no reset then. Oh, see, I get blips like that. Okay, so now the car really wants to go everywhere, but we have that responsiveness. Oh man, we went too deep. It's all right. I also don't want to damage anything. I got a little bit more there. Okay. I also have this lovely uphill. It's pretty bad. It was okay though. For me, it was okay. Here I'm trying to explain how things work, and I'm not even doing it right. It's hard. It's hard in these cars, especially when you're like trying to not take more damage. But see, like, no matter what your method is to get on that line, it's like, so I felt that one was okay. Like, I think using the flick there is definitely appropriate. For whatever reason in this game, the flick is a lot more effective than it is in 2, which is why I don't do it a lot. Oh, dude. Hey, good news. I got 400 brake horsepower, and I ran over that bush. Let's go. Oh, I just read the top.
And right 4 long, don't cut, up.
I'm not the greatest at multitasking. I try.
Right 6 and left 6.
Like, I get very ADHD with things.
Into turn hairpin left. Right 5 long.
Well, caught the inside just like you did yesterday. That turn's dumb.
100.
Oh man, I have so many comments about that. It's like I remember in when I was trained how to drive a vehicle on the streets.
Right 2 half long.
Like you were taught like, okay, this is how you like mess with the radio, and like when you need to turn the lights on, like it was it's part of the driving test. Like, you need to be able to handle being reasonably distracted because it's going to happen.
80 over crest.
And how do you not do it with don't bin the car doing it. I don't understand how we needed all these rules because people can't like realize that you can kill somebody with a vehicle and it's not good. But like I guess they changed the rules here in Michigan and they don't make any sense because it's like you can't even touch your GPS on your phone. But I'm like, but if I had an actual GPS. And if those have a touch screen, what are we doing? It's just one of those, like, if you're distracted, period, and it's obvious, that's a problem.
3, 2, 1, go.
And certainly if you cause an incident because you're a moron, that should definitely be a thing. But, like, it's when you, like, read the specifics of the rules, it's like, it's sort of a... All the big car companies are here, right? So one of the issues with that is a lot of rules and regulations benefit them. So it's let's just put it this way. So a lot of vehicles I've been in have all these fancy new hands-free devices. I have a hands-free device, and anytime I mess with them, it ends up being more distracting dealing with the fact that they don't work correctly and don't do what you want to do for like swiping something blindly on your phone while still looking at the road. Like I need you to tell me where I am, hit the button, or it's sitting in my cup holder or something, and I'm really doing no more than like touching the radio, but like somehow that's illegal, I guess, even though it's kind of a danger for like people to be like looking over at their map and stuff constantly too. So it's like I don't get it. It's more the rules written. Like totally distracted driving is going to kill people, but it's like the rule should just be. I'm not even sure what the rule should be, to be honest, but like people are way too distracted. Before work from home and all that stuff became like a big thing, I would regularly travel all the time, and I'd be rush hour every single day. And the issue is, I would see people doing their nails, eating food, doing makeup, brushing their teeth, cutting nails. I've seen everything on the expressway, and I was like, I don't know how these people didn't die. I'm like, what? He's like driving with his knees, trying to eat a Big Mac because he's got like, it looks like he's in like an airplane, and he's got the tray down. Like he had I guess he was wearing a suit or whatever, so he didn't want to get it all over that, so he's got like the paper out, and it was all just dumb. And I'm just like, what are you doing? The other person's got the little council thing down, and they're doing all their makeup, and I'm like, what is going on here? It's like, if you're in that much of a hurry, and also like keeping appearances, like, I mean, I don't think your job wants you doing that, and if they do, they're really not very smart. But there were many times that we would just sit in bumper to bumper traffic, and I'm like, and that's the thing is, so they changed the rule now, so like you can't do bullshit on your phone when you're stuck at a light or like stopped and stopped. You already know what's happening. There's literally nothing for you to look at on the road. Your car is functionally parked. But you can't tell someone you're on your way, or check your map, or whatever, or even just, like, change your radio station. If it's on your phone, you technically can't do it. And I'm like, that's just dumb. There's a lot of good things happening in this state lately, but I don't quite understand we're going to pick and choose. Like, you can mess with the radio, but you can't mess with the radio on your phone, even though both of them take your eyes off the road, technically. So that's the part I don't get it.
Right 6 long, 80.
Yeah.
Left 6, 80 over crest.
No, the only time I ever do something like that on my phone in the car is basically fully stopped, or I'm so far down the road that I'm not even really looking at it. There would be spelling errors and stuff. Usually it's somebody needs a voice message and I'm holding down the voice message button. But not anymore! Oh man. Oh, this is terrible. What are we doing here? Oh man, this is a good stage too. I mean, I just see, like, you know, there's levels to being distracted. And most, I guess, just a lot of people, I guess, can't handle it. I don't know.
Right 6, left 680.
But you play games like this and you realize how quickly everything... I don't know, they really ingrained in us in driving school, like, all kinds of things can happen to you bad at a moment's notice, and you need to be looking for all of those things. So that's what I'm doing constantly. I don't know, being a mathematician, like, changes your... Like a speedrunner, like, looking at things, your entire world looks completely different. Hey, it wasn't a bad stage. Everything you're looking at looks completely different than I guess, a normie, if you will. Like, one thing that always gets me frustrated is, like, people are never looking for people on bikes. And we have a lot of hedges in the area that are, like... So, like, you're leaving a subdivision, and you have all the bushes and stuff, and I'm always crawling towards those. Because I'm like, I've been on that bike, and I've had to, like, almost slam on the brakes and wreck, because there's somebody that I know is going to blow the stop sign. And I'm like, that's a really good way to seriously injure somebody, and like, come on, guys. I really don't know if I need engine or what. We're going to go with this. Yeah, it's just, I don't quite understand the, like, you know. But yeah, basically. If you want any of my setups, by the way, you're more than welcome. There's some way for me to post them very easily, but like, is there anything I want to change? Not really. Let's just get through these other two stages. I might be able to start the second one. I have to be done in 25 minutes. Oh, can I restart? Let's restart. It had a micro blip, and I was like, oh no.
3, 2.
My radiator is still going.
Right 3 continues 100. Left 6 over jump maybe 100. Right 6 through dip 80.
Oh no, dude. No. Oh, we won't restart for that.
Caution left 5 over jump. 60. Left 3 half.
The other thing that's weird is in 2, sometimes you're going to actually want to use the headlights, or at least I like to use the headlights on lighted stages because there's tunnels. Like, the one thing I don't like in Rally 1 is when I go into that tunnel in Monaco, I can never see where I'm going, and I'm like, headlights? Headlights. You don't get headlights in... Oh, I was watching that cool drone, and I just slowly ran out of space for the corner. This hill climb, though, I should have changed the gearing for this, and I didn't. Yeah, they fly right over your head in 2. I think there's one in this one that did it too. The coolest thing that I've seen in this game was there was a rock. An actual massive rock in the middle of the road. And I was like, what? and I was like, I'm going to make sure I hit it. I did it yesterday. I'm going to make sure we hit it. Because I want to know if that's fake or real. And no, it was real, and it definitely messed up the car. I'm like, wow, that was pretty cool. Not a lot of games do that.
Open 60, left 5, long, over crest. Right 6.
I mean, it's not like crazy changing track conditions like certain games can do now, but like...
Caution left 6,
But I was impressed, because I'm like, I've not seen the rock again. I don't know where it came from. But there was just, I think it was on this stage, and it was just on one of the hairpins. There was just a big rock in the middle of the road. One that you could roll over. It wouldn't like damage the whole front end of the car. But there was enough that it, you know, it popped the car. Oh no. The Olympus Mons face all over again. I thought that was worse than it was. Oh, it's this thing again. All I do is ever land on that. Ever. The darkness is getting to me. I gotta listen to Joe here. Co-pilot. Yep, this particular section gets me every time because I want to go and I can't. And then I try to go here and then you can't.
And hairpin right 60. 60.
Check the rest of your message in a second here. See if we can at least do a hairpin.
Hairpin left.
See there, I'm trying to take the hairpins good for you, and I'm not doing very well at that. This one was bad. So one thing we didn't talk about yesterday is that there's different types of hairpins, and depending on how tight they are, that changes how, like, the tighter the hairpin is, basically the more kind of close you have to stay into it, and you can't really, your acceleration outward is how you're going to get there is a little bit different. So when he makes different calls, you kind of want to pay attention to them. So if he says tight, or like on these that if the wall's there, you only have so much space like that to kind of flare out it when you exit the corner. So it's all about when, as soon as I can get on the gas kind of thing. So some of those you really want to square, like this one I should have squared the corner and just stayed in really tight and basically double apexed it. Get really close on the inside and then get really close on the exit so I can get out clean. Car got loose there.
Into turn acute right, 40, finish.
Oh no, dude! Oh no! We only got one stage to go, though. Hopefully we didn't break everything. If we got a puncture, we're okay. So what do we need to do in the last stage? Basically, nothing's at play. We have to be read by 16 seconds. Another night stage. This is almost a setup. Like, we started it. This is almost like a, well, I wouldn't say, probably like a real rally, because, like, the other one, maybe it does do it like that. I don't know. But, like, you'll get, like, nights, like, it takes the place over a few days, as opposed to, like, this one. The way they appear to have rolled it is the entire, the whole rally takes place over the course of, like, 24 hours, right?
100 through depth.
So, like, we were here in the morning, and then the afternoon, then dusk, and then now here we are at night finishing it. Kind of Baja 1000 style. Yeah, get me out of here.
Watch the temperatures.
No, dude, I'm not doing that. Or it's just going to continue lagging. Come on, man.
6, don't cut, 150. Caution narrows, left 5, don't cut, bad camber. Right 6, long, 150.
Oh, might just, let's just restart. I'm talking, and we got messed up, and I'm trying to go too fast. Let's just clean start.
2, 1, go. Right 4 at the crest line, over 100. Left 6, 80 crest.
One thing I've yet to figure out is normally in this game I would like, I want like 70% front brake bias. And now I've set up the car to where it doesn't really, there's not a lot of swing in the corners, right? Just a little bit, but not that much. And the way that this guy's setup was, and I don't know if it's good or bad, it's just not what I'm used to and what I would normally be thinking is what I want. Because he had basically 70% rear brake bias, which is problematic because it means that I don't have any tool to help give stability back to the car. Like I can't give it a little tap to the brake. Oh my goodness! I can't give it a little tap to the brake to kind of regather the car and get rid of any swirliness that comes out of some of the corners or just trying to go fast down a straight. Not that there's a whole lot, but like that, I would have to brake a lot harder on that brake bias. Whereas here, see, I could just kind of get a little bit of brake and a little bit of swing, and otherwise I'd have to brake way too hard. I forget where this goes this way.
Turn right 3, don't cut. Crest jump maybe. Left 6. Into right 5 long. Into left 3 long. 60.
This game also, like, anytime I hit any of these edges, it sucks your car in.
150. Left 6.
Alright.
Right 6, rock
These little rumbles here on the outside, they aren't too bad.
Left 5.
Yeah, rock. I didn't want to hit the rock and just end everything.
Right 4 long. 60. Left 1 half long.
Surprised the radiator hasn't gone more red.
Right 6 half long. Crest.
Because we don't have, see here I missed everything. So one thing you can do when you miss everything like that is just throw the car into a slide. Just I slam on the brake. You can lock up the brakes, and then, well, you don't want to lock the brakes because it slows your braking efficiency, but I also slam in the handbrake as well, just to keep the car going from going way off.
Right 2 long.
It's not good, it's not fast, but it keeps you from hitting whatever it is, and you'll hit the car. You hit it with the side pod of the car instead of the front, which can help prevent. I try not to wreck the wheels, and I try not to wreck the front of the car. Oh dear! Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we'll make it. Yeah, and one of the biggest things, like, you'll see me do the dump, like, I'll say I'm not going to do it, I do it anyways because I just want to play, right? But when you're making setup changes, you typically only want to change one thing at a time. Now, some things are coupled together, like if you're going to make a damper adjustment for the slow damper, like the slow bump damper, which is going to be called, I think, just the bump damper in this. If it doesn't say fast, then it's slow. You want to adjust both the front and the rear at the same time, and like certain things are coupled. Like if you're changing the spring rates, you're going to have to probably change the ride height too. But I don't know how much that matters in this game. But like if I was on a racing game, like when you change the suspension, you're changing how low the car wants to go. So yeah, I'm well aware, dude. There's only a couple seconds left. We're actually not doing too badly with the busted tire. But I figure we're at the very end. We're either going to get third or fourth, so. But like stuff like brake bias, for instance, if you make that change. Come on, get me off of the corner. Let's go. We're right at the finish. Come on. It's just straight ahead. We can do this. But yeah, all I'm trying to say is just you want to change one thing at a time. Unless suspension stuff is usually coupled together, but like for instance, a lot of the stuff that's driver oriented. Hey, we got fourth. If it's more driver oriented, it's going to be your differential locks. It's going to be your brake bias. Like the game's defaults aren't the worst. They've been better in this game. The Group B, this car, the S4, is atrocious in Dirt 2. It's base. Where are we? We're at Finland? Oh boy. I wish it said what track I did it for. So it says it's a Finland rocket. But I mean, here, since you're here, and we're only gonna get like one more run in anyways for it to go. So brake bias. See, I'm going to give you the general idea. If you're in a rear-wheel drive car, all-wheel drive, or front-wheel drive, that's going to make things different. Because front-wheel drive, they tend to understeer. Rear-wheel drive, they tend to oversteer. And some of these settings, you're going to learn tricks to help deal with that. All-wheel drive, you want it to drive like an all-wheel drive car, and you want a little bit of kick, and you kind of can choose kind of what you want. You just... Like this car in Dirt 2 wants to just spin every single time, so you have to. We'll talk about some of that. I'll just quickly go through it. So you know what brake bias does. So the closer it is to 50-50 in theory, and the Dirt games are a little bit different. But you want to brake as hard as you possibly can, and obviously you want to keep the highest speed you can through the corner too. But you want to brake really hard up until the point before the brakes actually lock. So the more the car has brake bias set to the rear or to the front, faster you're going to lock the brakes. This brake strength, it depends. I mean, if you're not pressing, you don't want to ever really press it all the way down anyways. It's like on a normal setting like this, it's probably about 70-80% of the brake at full speed to where you lock it. And if you're locking the brakes, you want to always get off. And if you're using anti-lock brakes, that's going to change that too. But okay, so a lot of times the setting on like racing cars is slightly to the front. And the more to the front you go, the less you lock. The way you test it in a racing game is it's not going to do it in this game because you're on gravel and stuff and the car is going to spin. In a racing game on tarmac or a track, you're going to lock the brakes in a Formula 1 car at 50-50 and the car is going to pirouette. The back end's going to come back around on you. Whereas in this, it's kind of how much spin you get because the car you're kind of always trying to counter steer it. Whereas I'm dealing with 800 horsepower cars with a massive amount of downforce, they're just going to come around. So a lot of times, the other thing is when you go into the corner, it should be that when you have the brake bias a little bit to the front, and in the dirt game 2 at least, it's about 70%. You can go a little bit higher if you want to. Like it's more important to have the right feel than the braking efficiency part of the equation. The braking efficiency in this game seems to matter a little bit more, that you kind of want something more towards the middle. But at any rate, you go into the corner, you're at your 80% brake coming into the corner, and then as you're getting, as you begin to turn in, you want to keep like 5 to 10% braking on. The reason being is that it's pushing that weight to the front. We want that front brake bias, and it's biting that car in at the front, and it's helping you turn in. And then once you started turning, and now once you're actually turning, you want to be off the brake, and you in theory you want to be coasting it. In rally, you're going to be giving a little bit of throttle to help control that turn, and then aiming for wherever your apex is, apex and the exit. So that concept is known as trail braking, and that's really, really important, because you probably noticed that I'm pretty much always on the brake and the throttle in this game for the most part, except in those like 3-4 corners where you're just basically just holding throttle and you're just basically holding the road as best you can. Sometimes you coast there, but like on your hairpins and stuff, that's the ideal thing that you want to have, is you want that bite when you brake. So if you brake way too soon, yeah, you're going to be able to make the corner and you'll be okay, but you're not going to be able to have a really good turn in. Like, you really got to time it exactly right. Yeah, you basically, and it helps the car turn. Basically, a very small amount of brake, because if you think about it, the tires have, let's say they have 100% of traction available. If you're off of the throttle and off of the brake, you have 100% of that grip is available to turn the car. Rally's a little bit different, but on a racetrack, a lot of times you can help kick the car a little bit. We're not really rally racing on a track, but every single car in iRacing and everything in you'll notice it on I don't know how to notice it well on dirt, but on anything that's tarmac, like in the Germany stage, which I think is supposed to be light gravel in this, but in Dirt 2 is tarmac, you'll see that it's just laying, like if it's laying down skid marks in this game, that's locking. And you should also hear it. One thing I tend to do in a lot of racing games is I will turn the engine noises down a bit, and I will turn tire skidding noises up to the maximum. I don't want to hear anything else, basically, besides when my tires are at full lock. But the key thing is that there's basically, you've probably seen a friction circle. And the friction circle shows how many G-forces, everything, basically how much turning there's happening, how much throttle and brake, and it shows like a little dot that moves around. Well, that's your tire traction circle as well. If you're accelerating, guess what? The tires are doing something that means they can't turn. Same thing if they're braking. You're using up available grip power to either brake the car or to make the car go. So if you have reduced turning power when you're doing both of those things. So if you're heavy on the brakes, you really can't turn. But you basically want to be almost off that brake as you're making the corner. And it might be a little bit different for rally, so if some of this stuff doesn't work, just find what works for you in the rally, because the game, I'm not a rally master. I know more about road stuff. All right, so that's brake bias, and this is a driver's thing. This brake strength, you're gonna lock stuff eventually. So if you're lighter on the brakes, you have to brake hard and you have trouble doing that, knock it up. If you go way too low though, then there's a max. Like if you made this max, that 100% braking, you essentially, anywhere between that 0 and 100% could do any of these numbers, right? But if I make it super low, I can't really do, there's a limit to how far I can go. So usually for me, it's about here, so that I know if I need to brake hard, I can. But for the most part, it helps me find the feel to keep it consistent between stages. So a lot of times on these setups, I'll just make it what I want. And I tend to go a little bit in the front, but I guess in Dirt 1, like this dude's setup was like all the way back in the rear for the brake bias. I don't know. But that helps you change the control of the car. So that's a really big one. Like assume whatever setup or whatever the defaults are good. Brake bias is a big one you want to touch. So driving lock. So what this has to do is, so front and rear. Rear I think has more to do with your spinniness. But what these differentials are is it causes the front wheels to lock. So driving lock means when so the important thing to understand is that accelerating out of the corner is when the LSD driving lock comes into play. Likewise, under braking, when you're braking, that's when that differential comes into play. When preload is when you're coasting. When you're off both, this is how much it's already locking. So this can help you on those corners where you're just off the throttle and you're just steering it. So The more locked you make this, the less spinning you're going to have. So you're going to spin less in the corners. And this, I find this a confusing explanation that they give here. And that article that I gave you, that setup thing, I can link it again. It basically said, like, this is basically the two of the things you want to touch. And the ones that really matter are the ones in the rear. Sometimes you'll want these near zero. Sometimes you'll want them near lock. The problem with making it zero or full lock is it kind of maximizes, like, the car will either not ever want to spin or it wants to spin all the time. But this braking lock and this driving lock in the rear, it's how much that car is going to fishtail. So that's, and I believe the more that you have, the less fishtail that you get during that. The car wants to oversteer less the higher this is. And, wants to understeer the higher this is. And the lower it is, the more it wants to oversteer. So if you want more spin going into a corner, you lower the braking lock. And if you want it to not spin leaving the corner, then you raise the driving lock. Viscous differentials on all-wheel drive cars. So whenever you hit the torque bias, is so when you gun it, where's that power coming from? So if you want to actually have, so one trick to kind of help all-wheel drive cars turn better is to also bring this guy under, because it basically means like sort of like the brake bias, but in reverse, right? I'm kicking the car out a little bit more. So if I'm turning a bit while providing power, it's actually causing the car to spin a little bit. You don't want to go super, super low. In Dirt Rally 2, I see many of the good setups running between 35 to 50% on this. For whatever reason, this guy's setup is very front. I don't know why. Viscous differential is the same thing we're talking about, the differential lock, except it's on all-wheel drive cars only, and it's between the front and rear axles. So instead of it talking about locking the two tires so that they want to go in the same direction, this is talking about keeping everything. So the stronger it is, I think, the less the car wants to kind of get all kinds of kind of squirrely. So I guess you can make it stronger, but I usually just leave it kind of where it is. But I'm sure there's a better explanation for that. What does it say? Strong differential reduces the difference between the axles. So yeah, so you get more traction on straights. This one I don't tend to touch too much, but some of the setups had it like set to like strong on this. So if you're having issues with stability on an all-wheel drive car going straight, this might help prevent it from getting something that's wacky. All right, so that's that. Gears, two things you need to know. I think both games give you a reasonable, like the spacing between the gears is sort of like what they are in real life. So like Dirt 2.0, they're usually pretty good. Except when I say pretty good, it's not necessarily fast. It's just that like the power curve for the car is okay. Meaning that you don't really have to like find some crazy new gearing. Like the car will drive okay. The problem is that the car overall, rally is not about going fast in a straight line. It's about going fast through corners and accelerating as quickly as possible. So a lot of times, you've seen it. This is my first adjustment. It's just make final drive just as low as possible. And then a lot of times we messing with first gear. So if you're on a stage that you know there's a lot of hill climbing, you can bring first and second gear closer together so that you're in the higher revs more, which is going to help push the car up hills better. So like these gears feel a little bit more spaced than they probably could be. If you wanted them closer, it means you have to shift more, but it also means that the car is going to accelerate a little bit faster. But if you make them way too close, your final drive, when you get to fifth gear, it's going to be like 120 miles an hour max, which if you're not that fast, like some stages I really suck, it's like I want to make sure I get out of the corners well. If you're having trouble getting out of hairpins and you can mess with first gear, make first gear longer so that you can really gun it exiting corners, and you have a lot more, like it's revving up and helping you push out of the corner. The one guy's guide basically says mess with first gear to fix that. All right, suspension. Of course. Yeah, and the other thing is launches. So like you don't want to be like on first gear and then just already be in second gear. So in those cases, you can just launch in second gear if the track suits it. All right, so camber angle. It's how much the tires are. How much the tires are cockeyed this way. So you're never run a positive camber angle. It's pointless. A lot of times in this game, the correct answer is minus 1.5. And what that is the cars are basically, when you're on a corner, what happens? The car is going to pitch in. And what it's going to do is if the tires are all, 1.5 degrees, the inside tire is going to grip the road better. You're going to have a little bit more grip turning. Think about like oval racing and NASCAR. Their tires are always, you know, like 3 or 5 degrees tilted one way, or whatever the allowable maximum is. You're not going to blow out tires in this game doing this, so it doesn't matter. But the most optimal before the car kind of gets like fishy, awkward. They call it vague steering. Basically, like you get off the corner and all of a sudden, why is the car kind of going up and back? It's because there's too much camber sometimes. 1.5 on both sides is probably fine for everything. Toe angle is not the slant of the tire. It's this of the tire. It's the, if I turn my shopping wheel cart inward, rotated them inward this way. I don't know if you can even see my hands, but the tire itself is not being slanted vertically. It's a kind of a horizontal turn. So toe angle inward is going to make the car not want to turn. And this is really important for those cars that you find really, really hard to handle. I would generally keep the toe angle at 0 on the front. The key thing is if you make it like minus 0.2 or whatever, that can help you turn the car in better. The car wants to turn. Do it on the front. Let's say you have, so again, we make this 1.5. You can go higher. It's just, you know, like in a racing game that does tire temps and stuff, the more camber angle you go, it's going to start damaging the tire more than you're getting grip. So but in this game, 1.5 on like a lot of the setups is pretty good. I didn't check Dirt 1s, but in Dirt 2, it's typically 1.5 is the general recommendation if you know nothing else. So toe angle in the rear. So this Lancia S4 is like super hard to handle and it wants to go everywhere. In Dirt 2, we pretty much put this at like 1, well, this is like max in this game, but like 1 degree is like half of what you could go in the second game. And what that does is on the rear, it's putting the tires inward, and it's harder for them to want to spin out, basically. So when you're on that straightaway, it's going to help prevent the car from getting kind of vague and kind of crazy. You do not want rear toe out because the car is going to become really unstable on the straights. But if you're having difficulty on the straights and the car seems really hard to handle from the rear perspective, it's really oversteery, this can help settle the car down without screwing anything else up. So that's that. What do we got left here? We got damping and suspension. Oh dear. All right, so ride height. In theory, you want to go as low as you possibly go before bottoming the car out. Bottoming the car out, you'll know, because you hit a bump in the road and the car just spins. That's way too low. Or your springs aren't leveling the car up enough. But for the most part in this game, I don't know about Dirt 1. In Dirt 2, whatever they give you for the ride height, you generally can go like 2 ticks lower, if not lower. If it's a nice little tarmac like Germany, well, it's tarmac in Dirt 2. But the flatter your surface is, you want to be as low to the ground as possible because it prevents, the more the car is pitched up, anything that bounces the car is going to cause something, your springs have to deal with that. So the lower the car is, the lower you are to the ground, and on auto, and like Formula 1 and stuff, it actually creates a vacuum. Not a vacuum, but it causes a faster air to go under the car, which gives you more grip. I think in this game, it just prevents it prevents excess travel of the suspension. So you could just set them all at the max. It's going to hurt. It's going to cause your suspension and you having to deal with the car wanting to. It catches a bump and all that energy is being dissipated somewhere on the car, and now you have to get rid of it. So, go with whatever feels good to you. But the theory is go as low as you possibly can. That's safe. It's all right, and we're not talking about rake and stuff in this game, so I don't think it matters. Typically, your ride height in the front is going to match your rear in this game. Spring rate. So the firmer the springs are, the more responsive the car wants to be. So there's basically a spring. When you hit a bump, the firmer the spring is, the faster it's going to want to dissipate that energy. Whereas if it's softer, the spring isn't resisting as much, so it's gonna move it a lot slower. And that article explains all this in way more detail. I'm trying to go through it quickly. But the key thing is that I try to go with the firmest suspension that I can handle. And the suspension's a lot of your personal preference, but the car is going to be more responsive the firmer it is. But it also means that you have less to work with if the car is taking a lot of bumps. But the regular suspension is how you're normally driving the car. We'll get back to roll bar because that's the last thing. So same thing with the rear. The firmer the rear is, though, it can come over on you quick if you set this too high. I tend to make it so that the front suspension is usually a little bit more firm than the rear. Even if we're in a soft suspension, it's like one tick higher on the front than it is on the rear, because the rear is going to want to make the car actually like spin out on you. Yeah. So, and generally you want to work with these in pairs. You don't want a super front Like, so this is one of the things that, like, if you're making an adjustment, you probably want to, if it's 2 ticks up on the front, it's probably 2 ticks up on the rear kind of thing. But you can try and make it a little bit different, but just realize, like, you're going to have a sluggish, one part of the car is trying to be sluggish while the other one's trying to be very responsive, and you have to deal with that. Which, if the car is really unwieldy, maybe that helps you. But, okay. And then the last thing is the roll bars. So the roll bars, so we talked about the diffs. The diffs are happening at particular, we got to talk about dampers too. But that's the key thing about keep in mind with spring rate. Spring rate's happening on the car at all times. So if you have a handling issue, this is the important thing to understand with this conversation. If you have a handling issue at all times, changing the diff for what happens on entry to the car, unless you change all 3 of them, is not going to solve the problem. You're going to want to address the springs because if the car is unwieldy at all times, you want to deal with the setup changes that affect the car at all times, right? So one of the ones that also does that is the roll bar. So the front roll bar and the rear roll bar are basically working, well, they do the same thing, but they work in opposite directions. They're trying to lock the tires. It's basically like the diff, except it's a diff that works at all the time. When you're trying to turn in the car and exit the car, well, there's still reasons on like an oval or something where you change the roll bars differently. But for this game, what you want to understand is the stronger the front roll bar is it essentially, if the car is too loose, you either want to strengthen the front roll bar or you want to weaken the rear roll bar. And it's the reverse if you want the car to roll more. So the anti-roll bar is exactly what it is. It wants the car to not roll. So if you think about all the other stuff with suspension and the diffs and locking stuff, this is basically a lock that's happening at all times. So the weaker the front is, the more it's going to want to oversteer, and the stronger it is, the less it's going to want to oversteer because it's keeping those wheels locked together. Now, if you make this way too strong, you're going to try to turn in, and it's not going to want to turn in. And that's where it's like, okay, we want to reduce this, and we want to open up, we want to change like the diff or something because we want to focus on the inside. Okay, last thing, dampers. This bump threshold means that when you hit you go off the track, you hit a big rock, and there's a big shock to the suspension. When it hits this number, that's when your fast bump and rebound come into play. Okay? Otherwise, these things don't matter. When I say they don't matter, it's not for going around a corner. It's not going to help the car until you hit an actual bump that wants to actually throw the car into the ditch. So what this helps with is very bumpy tracks, and sometimes setting this lower. Basically, the lower it is, the sooner that these will kick in to basically save your butt, which is kind of a weird way to say it, but that's what they're for. They're not for the regular driving of the car. Besides, like, hope that makes sense. Like, it's not for cornering. It's for when you hit a big bump in the road, and including anything that says fast, it's for crazy things happening on the road. Don't go crazy with these over jumps. Like, this is not to handling a jump. If the car is handling well, you don't need to do any of it. You should be approaching the jump better. But it's like in Greece, like hitting those rocks on the side and stuff. I guess that helps dissipate the energy in a better way, because these guys are going to be overwhelmed because basically the spring has nowhere to. You've overloaded the spring, and now it has to deal with that energy. It's either going to spin you out or it's going to try to shock it and absorb it. So all right, so bump and rebound, front and rear. There's a chart that explains all this, but think about it. When the car goes into the corner and you brake, the front springs are going to have pressure on them, while the rears let go because there's less pressure on them. So when you pitch inward, that's considered the bump. So how firm that is how quickly that wants to dissipate the energy. The softer it is, the longer it's going to take to dissipate that energy. So, for instance, in a racing car on a track, what we're dealing with is that these dampers have to do with how quickly that energy is dissipated coming into the corner, and how quickly that energy, because when you come off and accelerate, the car pitches back like a boat. Think like a boat going on the water. It pitches back on the rear. So bump rebound on front and rear work in opposite directions, because bump rebound is when the spring is becoming unloaded. So entering the corner, braking on the front, you're hitting the bump first. and that's how quickly it's going to deal with the energy coming in, and how quickly it gets rid of the energy. How quickly the spring compresses is the bump, and the rebound is how quickly it decompresses. And so the exact opposite happens on the rear. When it pitches out, your rebound is happening on the entrance to the corner, and when you exit the corner, the bump is what's happening on the rear, but the rebound is what's happening on the front. I hope that makes sense. And the article should talk about that. But basically, the reason you need to understand that is that, what did I just talk about? This is all about cornering and dissipating the energy. So you have to kind of figure out, there's a little picture I can send you that will tell you exactly what to do. But basically, it's on corner entry, if it's doing this, you change your bump and rebound. If it's in accordance, you would change the bump. If it's on entry, you need to change the bump front or the rebound rear, or both. And on exit, it's going to be the rebound in the front and the bump in the rear. And that's all that means. A lot of times, like I try to go really firm because it helps keep the car very responsive. The article has way too much, but I've now overloaded you with everything you need to know, and go out and go race. Because for the most part, a lot of these are going to be to taste in this game, but at the same time, you don't want to be like screwing yourself over with something that doesn't, But that's my time. I'm like eight minutes over, but I figured that would be useful, and I'll link that article again because it's probably the best explanation specifically to. It's the ultimate setup guide. Here it is. It's this guy. And if you go all the way... Yeah, so when I think the rear-wheel drive, it's going to be, do I want to make the rear toe-in really high? Do I want to... It's probably the rear toe-in, that rear braking and rear driving LSD, the differentials in the rear. Just make sure that the fronts are something sensible, because if the front doesn't have enough wherewithal to both be stable as well as help you turn, like making them 0 or max, I hope you have a really good setup. But if you go all the way down to the ninth section in here, it's like troubleshooting your car, and it gives a lot of suggestions. And there's one, it says considering damper settings. That entire conversation is just in there. It says, like, if your car wants to do this, if it's oversteer getting back on power, decrease your rear bump values or increase your front rebound values. And all that is just how quickly the energy goes. So it helps. Having the dampers right, basically you'll drive it and be like, this feels really good. But you have so many other options in this car. Some of the games, some in like iRacing, like all we have to change is like dampers. So maximizing the dampers to really roll through the corners well. But no, this article is really, really good. And there's various like setup guides. It's just that not all of them have stuff for rally racing. They're more geared towards your Formula Ones, your GT racing games, because the settings, like you generally aren't dealing with all-wheel drive, so those settings aren't even in there. But there you go. I think that's pretty much all you need. Class dismissed. But if I'm up, I'm gonna be up for the soccer later, so feel free to, if you're playing, you can jam. But yeah, so rear-wheel drive is that rear toe-in, the rear diffs. Possibly that preload, like if you're off throttle and you're just kind of coasting through something and the car is still like just nowhere, you might want to make that preload a little bit higher. And the roll bars. So another thing to just make the car more stable, you increase the front roll bar. It's even in here. There's a thing: case, oversteer, roll bar, front stiffer, rear softer. Oh, thank you. Oh yeah, you mentioned this yesterday. Thank you very much. I'll have a look at that. And I'll catch you later, Aquas, when you're streaming. Have a good one.